Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Turnbuckle Debate. I believe this is number 19.
Yep.
I'm your host, Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Tom, the OG Fig Kid.
And we have a special guest today.
A fourth voice.
Our first time having a fourth voice on from the CHICK FOLEY Show, Sheena Phelps. Sheena, how are you?
I am doing good. I am honored to be here. I'm stoked to be on the debate show.
Oh, we're pumped to have you on.
Pumped up.
I'm so excited. I really am. This is great.
It's good to have a fourth voice too. Like,
absolutely.
We've never had a fourth voice, so I mean, when I knew we had a fourth voice coming on, I was pumped.
Well, good.
And
hopefully I set the bar high, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe somebody will agree with me now. You know?
Well, Tom, don't get ahead of yourself.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So Sheena, before we get started, tell everybody where they can find you and all that good stuff.
So you can find me running Instagram over at Chick Foley. My good buddy Marco, you can interact with us over there. He runs Twitter. It's at Chick Foley Show. And then you can get more involved with our Foley fam and everything we have going over there if you just go to chickfoleyshow.com. But if you want to interact with me directly, I mainly run the Instagram. I let Marco do all the damage over there on Twitter. I'm not into that Twitter game. You know, it's too rough in them streets.
And while we're in the plugging mode right now, we want to. This is kind of coming from this partnership that we just started. We announced to you guys about a week ago, the Pod Foundation.
Yeah.
Go to @Pod Foundation on Twitter and Instagram. We've got some great shows like CHICK FOLEY Show. We have Pyramid Wrestling, and we have Extra Cooler Show. And we're going to be doing a lot of these collaborations.
This is the first of many crossovers, and you guys are in for a treat because we're going to bring it on all platforms.
Yeah, it's super awesome. I'm glad to have you guys on board. Again, we just wanted to kind of bring everybody a little bit of content. You know, there's no way that one show can cover all aspects of the wonderful world of wrestling.
Right, exactly.
So we thought, we perfectly curated just an amazing group of shows to kind of just hit all aspects. You know, we got Extra Cooler with the retro theme. We got you guys who cover, in-depth AEW. You have some stellar interviews. You know, we kind of go over a little bit of everything that happened in the current product, figure news, all that kind of stuff, and just bring you a lot of fun. And then, we got Pyramid Wrestling they're killing the action figure show game.
So good.
So, yeah, so good.
Yeah, we're definitely excited to be a part of this group. And I think Seth mentioned it. If for nothing else, we have a killer group chat going.
Yes, it is so much fun. I love it. It was awesome during the pay-per-view the other night. I was just like, I love seeing all of your guys' live reactions to everything that was going on.
Yeah. Make sure you guys tune in to you'll hear a lot about the pay-per-view on our show tonight.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna have a lot to say. Yeah.
All right.
So we'll kind of give a rundown. We're going to go through 3 topics, and then everybody's going to give their opinion. We'll debate it, and just kind of, don't pay attention to what Tom says though.
Hey,
poor Tom.
Thank you.
He's our scapegoat.
He's the whipping post.
He's our whipping post.
We're both WWE and Dashin lovers, all right? So we have our own little thing going on here.
All right, so we're going to get into our first topic. Do fans let AEW get away with things that they would roast WWE for? Anybody start it off? Tom?
Absolutely. I definitely say yes, but I think it's a two-way street. Like, WWE fans are going to roast the AEW for stuff, and AEW fans are going to roast the WWE for stuff. But I definitely see things in AEW that if Jurassic Express was in WWE, people would hate it.
I think that's very true. Yeah, I mean, I think they let things. I do think that they let AEW get away with things. However, I think that the reason is I don't think AEW takes themselves too serious on things like that. And I think sometimes WWE tries to portray just a too much seriousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're definitely I don't know if you would say like bigger like corporation or whatever, but you can tell it's strictly business with WWE. It's very corporate. Whereas Tony Khan, he's a wrestling fan. Not that Vince McMahon is not a wrestling fan, but Vince McMahon is a businessman at the end of the day. And Tony Khan, I feel like this is like his little hobby project. Granted, it's amazing, and I love everything that AEW is doing. But he's like kind of like the chess player. you know, and he's like getting to play this, he's getting to fantasy book real people, you know, which is like so much fun for him. Whereas Vince, you know, he's a businessman through and through, and he's just very straight laced when it comes to like, you know, no nonsense.
Yeah, Tony Khan is very much if a super fan had $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly.
My whole take on this is, AEW fans do kind of, they're the homers. They give
homers. A lot of grace. Yeah,
exactly. And they would bury WWE for it. Here's the thing that is different about it, though. For me, it's like, I don't think it's, if WWE would do Jurassic Express, since Tom brought them up, do you really think it would be done exactly the way Tony Khan would do it? It wouldn't be the same. To me, I always relate it to, if you listen to Al Green play a song, and then you have Slayer come play that same song, it's not going to sound the same. And I think AEW people kind of attach themselves to the vibe and the sound and the song that Tony Khan is playing. Now, just because Vince plays that same song, we're not going to get the same product. It's going to be filtered through a Vince McMahon filter.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about WWE too is it's very compartmentalized. Like every storyline is its own, it's like an anthology series each week. You know, you're getting to watch like each episode of each storyline play out individually. Like, and it's like these characters do not even exist in the same universe. Do you know what I mean? Like Seth Rollins could have a storyline and he could act like, I mean, he could have had a 6-month feud with Baron Corbin, but if he's not immediately in that universe right there, then and there with Baron Corbin, it's like Baron Corbin doesn't exist. Whereas AEW, all these people are operating in the same universe. So they do get to get away with a lot more because there's so many more storylines that are like intermingling, you know, that are happening at the same time. Like one person could have multiple angles, right? Which is great, but it can also lead to, you know, I think we've gotten so used to the way that WWE produces things and does things that people were so ready to jump onto something new that it was like you were kind of like the early adopter. Like if you jump to AEW and you're like, yeah, this new product is going to be amazing. Like nobody had even seen it yet. And everybody was like, yeah, it's going to stomp WWE. It's going to be so much better. And I feel like when you stand on that mountain, you know, once you kind of like stood there, like it's going to take a lot to knock you off. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what AEW does, what WWE does. You're always going to back AEW because you took that stance where you were like, no, like this is so amazing. WWE's tired. They got Vince McMahon who's out of touch, you know, so they're not, the AEW hardcore AEW marks are not going backwards. You know what I mean? Right.
And there's definitely a vibe of, I think AEW fans feel like you're with this outlaw group that's facing down the corporate giant. And we feel like we're a part of this small faction of just someone fighting for the greater good. I mean, we all grew up loving WWE. I mean, everyone here respects 100%. And loves that company. But I think speaking for me, I'm exactly what Sheena is talking about. I was the one that I got burnt out on it and something new came along. And the most important thing was like, when it came along, I felt like, man, this is like starting a TV show from the first episode. I get to know, because WWE was around way before I was. So there was things that I didn't really gravitate towards. So we're getting to see history made within this company.
And there were times in all of our fanhoods, I'm pretty sure I can speak for most fans. I mean, there are some hardcore lifers that like never took a day off, but I don't know about you guys, but I had a huge gap in my fandom, you know, where it was like in college and I kind of stepped away from the product and I didn't come back to the product till 2014. So all of that stuff that happened during like Ruthless Aggression and all of that kind of stuff, like that was in my dark period, you know? I mean, granted, I knew who those people were, but I was not following the week to week product or any of that kind of stuff, you know? And like you said, with AEW, you're kind of like getting in at that ground level, but you also have to think like AEW, they do stand on some mountains that I'm like, like with Christian Cage coming back at the pay-per-view, everybody was like, this is awesome. And I'm like, is it though?
Yeah.
Is it though? Because nothing against Christian. He is Hall of Fame worthy. He was a part of arguably one of the best tag teams in WWE history. But we just saw him at the Rumble. I feel like it would have been way more impactful if we hadn't just seen him at the Rumble. And then he came back after like 5 years or however long it had been since he had wrestled. And we were like, oh my God, Christian's back, you know, but we just saw him and it was like, oh, well, WWE didn't want to write you any storylines. So here you are, you know? So to me, it just kind of fell flat. And then even Ethan Page, you know, I just felt like, I feel like AEW has a really good track record of over promising and under delivering.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
they build it up. I mean, Paul White made it seem like they were going to bring in Brock Lesnar. You know
Or
what I mean?
Punk,
And
or,
I
yeah.
thought bringing in Paul White was a bigger deal than bringing in Christian.
It
And they
was.
just kind of like slid
Yeah.
that under the radar.
Yeah,
you
it
know, they were
was,
like,
yeah.
oh, look, we got X Big Show, you know, versus, and they're like, he's like, he's going to work harder than everyone. You know, I got the scoop. I got the biggest scoop. And I was like, well, damn, who is this?
This is crazy. Yeah. And the crazy thing about it is that they didn't do anything for Sting. Like Sting would have.
That's true.
Sting
Yeah, that
was
was a
something
true
that we
surprise.
never knew.
Yeah.
Never. They didn't even hint at the fact that they had somebody like that coming.
But I kind of love that though, because
And I do
WWE
too.
does not do that at all anymore. They're going to bring every eyeball to the product that they can, whether if it means never ever having another surprise entrant ever again, because they are desperate for those ratings. Which to me, I love those surprise where people just show up out of nowhere
I
and
do
they're like,
too.
"Holy S word," you know what I mean? Like this is crazy.
That's why I was very surprised they handled Paul White and Christian Cage with these big announcements, because
Mhm.
the way they handled Sting, the way they handled Miro, the way they
Mhm.
handled FTR, as far as just them showing up on the show, all three of those were like, holy shit, they're
Yeah.
here. Like we didn't see that coming.
Paul White was just announced on Twitter and Instagram and on the
Yeah.
internet. That was crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it was, but it shocked, like, it legitimately shocked me when I saw it. I'm like, what? Out of nowhere. Like, that
Yeah.
was much more meaningful than announcing, hey, somebody's going to be on our show tonight. Tune in.
One of the
You know?
biggest misses I think WWE had was when they brought Punk back and his entrance was on Fox
Oh.
at
Yeah.
like midnight.
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's funny because like you said, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is like, again, they were like, oh, this is so crazy. I can't believe they just brought Punk in, you know, on this little backstage show on SmackDown. And then they do that to the Big Show and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we got the
Yeah.
Big Show. So again, it's that hypocrisy of, you know, WWE. It's like whatever they do is like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And then AEW does it. And it's like, oh, they're the best, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of that for sure.
And in all fairness, to me, I didn't jump on the AEW ship right away. I started watching it fast forwarding through about 90%. As you guys know, I've said this before. And then as time went on, I was watching more and more and more to the point that I love it now. And, you know, it's the show I look forward to the most each week.
yeah, well, I would like to take some credit for Tom becoming an AEW fan.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
you can credit
well,
that to us.
You know what? You guys honestly did push me a little bit. You did help me. You did. Like, honestly,
it's
definitely.
funny. It's funny because we brought you onto the debate show as the third voice because we needed a WWE voice, because me and C were like, well, on the Turnbuckle Tavern, all we do is shill for
Praise AEW.
We need someone to come on and check us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
I still enjoy WWE more than you guys. Like,
Well, and
I
I think
still watch
what-
Raw and SmackDown.
And I think what it took for you was one of the first debates when we were talking about the dog collar match between Brody and Cody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you
that
went
was
back and
amazing.
watched it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, Luke Harper was always one of my favorites. So, like, I was so interested in him in AEW.
Yeah, he was good, but again, I will be totally honest with you. When that happened, when he was announced to be the Exalted One, I was like, you know, and it ended up being really amazing, and he was incredible, and he proved what he was capable of that we really never got to see full on in WWE. But yeah, I will be very honest and say when that happened, I was a little underwhelmed. Like Luke Harper, you know, and
Yeah.
to Heel Husband's defense, he always took up for Luke Harper, and I was always like, yeah, he's great, but I mean, like, you think he could be a main eventer? He was like, yeah, you know, he could. And then he got to show us what he could do in AEW. But I was seriously underwhelmed because that was when, I mean, they're still doing it, but it's like they're bringing in all of the talent from WWE, which I don't think is as bad of a thing that everybody's making it out to be. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I just feel like they are trying to pretend like these people didn't exist in another universe, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I kind of hate the fact that people get upset that AEW are signing these WWE people. It's like some of these people have, you know, they're in the prime of their career. Where are they supposed to go? Just because you've reached WWE doesn't make it bad that you go somewhere else.
True. But let's get back to the question at hand. So, okay. Rusev, right before his departure from WWE, was in this horrendous wedding storyline with Lana and Bobby Lashley that, like, I mean, granted, it drew ratings, like the ratings cannot be denied. People love that garbage, but it was It was horrible to watch, right? AEW gets him. We're like, holy crap, Miro has arrived. This is amazing. He's going to get to be the Bulgarian brute style that we knew and loved early on in Rusev's career. No. What do? We put him in a storyline with the best friend, or that with Kip Sabian with his wedding, being his best man. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen this somewhere before, And
I feel like that's the storyline that people hated too. I feel like I don't think anyone right now is high on Miro's story. I hate that storyline.
Yeah.
True. I mean, no one is high on their storyline, but when they bring in talent like that, they're like, yeah, they were so misused in WWE. AEW is going to show what they're capable of. And it's like, did they though? Like, I don't think they did,
Yeah. I felt like they were also poking fun at the WWE a lot for that whole wedding angle throughout the whole thing. And
but why do that? Why waste him? I mean, with wrestlers specifically, every day is important because they could get injured. Like, we don't know. Like, they may not be here next week. They could get a freaking career-ending injury. So when you have these guys in their prime, you have to strike while the iron's hot because the iron is not always going to be hot.
Right. And I agree.
I don't disagree. I think finally we saw what Miro's going to start to be at the pay-per-view.
Finally, I mean,
finally. Yeah, how long has he been? It's like 6 months, right?
Yeah, like you're talking about, Sheena. The problem with them bringing him in like that, and say they're just doing it as a shot at WWE. My problem with that is like, yeah, but now you're going to have to dig yourself booking wise out of this hole.
Yes.
You've turned your fan base on showing this guy as this way. And now you've got to like work him out of this hole.
1000%. I feel like they did that with Kenny Omega. Everybody was like, AEW, they don't want, the people that are in charge, they don't want to push themselves. Like, that's selfish. They want to build new talent. I'm like, I signed up for AEW because of Kenny Omega. Like, they got Chris Jericho, they had the Young Bucks, they had the Elite. Like, that's what I was here for. That's what I bought into. I didn't buy into all these, at first I didn't buy into Darby Allin. You know what I mean? I didn't buy in for Orange Cassidy. I bought into AEW because of the freaking star power that was coming together to form this, new company. And then then all of them, like the Bucks, they were kind of stood back, didn't really do anything in the beginning. Kenny Omega stood back and didn't. I'm like, now you're going to have to make people believe that this is the baddest wrestler in the whole world. You know what I mean? Like, you have to work in reverse now because you've showed that he's just this average guy. And now you have to build him back out of that.
But one thing, my counter to that though, and this is one of the beauties of AEW, is they have faith in the long-term booking.
They do.
They knew they were going to sacrifice the best bout machine, Kenny Omega, for the entire first year of the company, knowing that in 2021, it's going to be the year of Omega. And for them to roll the dice and risk it and be like, you know what, we'll just have him put some other guys over. We'll have him. I think that's ballsy because WWE's booking is very the here and now. We got it now. We don't know if he's going to be around in a year. We got to get it now. And I think AEW I love that they have that long-term plan.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. The WWE storytelling is very sporadic too. Like, they could end a storyline and pretend like it never happened. Like, I guarantee as horrible as the end of the barbed wire death match was, they are going to roll it into some sort of storyline. They're already doing it. You know what I mean? Tony Khan is playing kayfabe hardcore right now. You know what I mean? And Mox said that thing after the camera stopped rolling, and they're already thinking about how they can use that. Whereas WWE, they would have deleted it from all of their platforms and they would have never spoke of it again. Like, it would
sweep it under the rug.
It would be totally gone. Yeah. It would just be like, okay, we didn't do that, and then it was gone. So AEW does a really great job of that.
All right. So that's going to wrap us up for the first time. Anybody have any final arguments for this one?
No, I would say definitively, though, that AEW does get away with a lot of things. People give AEW a lot more grace than they give 100%. WWE.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yes, absolutely agree.
All right. So our second topic of the evening are the Bella Twins Hall of Fame worthy?
So this was kind of like my contribution to the debate. Because last year when this was announced, it was very polarizing. Like, some people were like, yeah, cool, and then other people were like, what the hell? Why are the Bella Twins going into the Hall of Fame? Like, they don't deserve it. And I feel like the Bella Twins get a really, really bad rap because they were kind of like those they were the bridge between like the women of like the Attitude Era and like the pudding matches and the bikini fights and the pillow fights and all that, and what we know of the women's division today. So like they've kind of been on both sides of it, but both of those women have accolades. Brie was a former Divas champion. Nikki is the longest reigning Divas champion, 301 days.
He was the last Divas champ too, right?
The very last. Yeah, she lost to Charlotte, and then they unified the women's championship and the Divas championship. But you can say what you want about Nikki Bella. Toward the end, she was getting so good. Like, her wrestling style was amazing, but she was a powerhouse. But people were already like, they had already ushered in that NXT generation of talent, you know, Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte. And people were like, when AEW came in, everybody was like, well, let's jump ship from the old and go to the new. And unfortunately, the Bella Twins were like lumped in with that old, and it didn't matter what they did. They couldn't win the hearts of the people who loved the women of NXT. You know, NXT like was that representation that like something's going to happen. But if it weren't for the Bella Twins, like those women at NXT would not have had the opportunities that they had.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They ushered in the whole from going to the Divas back to the Women's Championship and making it more serious. You can't not put them in the Hall of Fame. They were there for one of the most important times and helped to transition.
Yes, they transitioned those new talents to the main roster.
Yeah, and they're not done yet. We're going to see them come back and get a women's tag team championship run. They've said it before they want it. You know, I don't think they're even done contributing yet. And the fact that they could still come back and contribute with the women who are there today, it's awesome. They're amazing. I 100% I think they belong in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm interested to hear what Two Bad Chads have to say about the Bella Twins.
Here's my thing with the Bellas. I think they go in, if you give a Hall of Fame induction solely on what they gave to the business, I can get behind that. Because like you said, I think they were not taken seriously in the beginning of their career because the Divas were looked at, they still had that stigma of the Attitude Era stuff.
Yeah.
The ruthless aggression stuff.
And they were packaged as models in the beginning, and they weren't models. You know what I mean? They were like Nikki was going to college to play or going to play professional soccer. She's an athlete, you know?
Right. Yeah. And like you said, they were that bridge between that and the new the Evolution NXT era of women's wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I think they got forgotten in that because by the time they were in that, we were looking at the Baileys and the Charlottes and the Sashas. So, and Nikki Bella in 2015 PWI, she was the #1 female wrestler in the world by Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Wow.
And that's very touted.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as in-ring accomplishments, I mean, she's the longest reigning Divas champ. I think the reason she's the longest reigning Divas champ is because they wanted to take that from AJ Lee because of the CM Punk debacle that was going on behind the scenes. Both of them left. She held that record and they're like, we need to get that record off of her. Who's our champ? Oh, Nikki's the champ right now. Just have her keep it and we'll wipe the history books of AJ Lee's title reign.
I mean, that's definitely a point to be argued, but I think what we know of WWE, if they didn't feel like Nikki was doing the title justice, they would have taken it away from her and given it to somebody else.
100%.
And let them do that. And I mean, and I know you think there wasn't all the accolades that there are now. I mean, you got to think there was no women's Royal Rumble back then. There was no women's Money in the Bank back then. Women didn't have all the opportunities that they have to have the accolades now. I mean, you could be like, oh, well, Carmella is Mrs. Money in the Bank and she's, this and that. But I mean, that wasn't around for the Bella Twins. So they didn't have that. But I mean, Brie Bella brought freaking Stephanie McMahon out of retirement for their match at SummerSlam, that was a really good feud, because the whole Daniel Bryan thing being out, I thought that was awesome. And you can't discredit the fact, again, I know you're talking about in-ring stuff, but they brought a whole new crop of eyeballs to the product. Divas? I mean, they took it mainstream. Yeah. And they were the pillars of Total Divas. Total Divas would not exist without without the Bella twins. So they opened that up to so many more eyes. And I think also Nikki Bella was a product of being in a relationship with John Cena. I think people kind of like, they discredited her accomplishments and what she brought to the table because they're like, oh, well, she's just John Cena's boy or girlfriend, or, oh, she only gets this opportunity because she's dating John Cena, you know? And I think a lot of that was tied to that. And I think that was like highly unfair, you know?
I'm with you. I think the shame of the Bellas is the best work they were doing was right before everything started. Right before Nikki got hurt,
yes,
and Brie got pregnant, that's when they were really hitting their stride.
100%.
And it's almost like their career got taken away from them before it even got really started.
You know why? It's because they had all that talent come up from NXT to challenge them. Before that, who was there to challenge them and push their boundaries and like create these amazing matches? You know what I mean? Like they didn't have that. So when all those women came up and they were able to work with them, it was like, holy crap, like Nikki Bella's got a nice freaking moveset, you know? So yeah, it's unfortunate the timing and everything. I hope Nikki gets to make a comeback. I know she's like teased it and stuff. Who knows what can happen, but yeah, she's definitely Hall of Fame worthy. And then today they announced that Molly Holly is going to be, and she's definitely more. The Bella twins are definitely more worthy than Molly Holly. I mean, no shade to Molly Holly. I'm happy for her, but yeah, they're definitely.
I do think they are Hall of Fame worthy, and I think that the reason we're having this whole topic as a debate is because I think they rode a fine line of a couple of years, one way or the other, we wouldn't even be having this debate. If they were 2 or 3 years in the future, there wouldn't even be this debate. Yeah. But because they rode that line of past versus present, that's why people have that debate.
Yeah, because they're kind of forgotten in the shuffle a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, they're in the gray area. You know what I mean? Like I said, they're not considered like the bikini people, right? But then they were also kind of in that evolution period with Paige and, like you said, AJ Lee and all of that, when it started to be like, you don't have to look this way, you don't have to be a blonde Playboy model to be a women's wrestler, you know. And then it kind of really got to be more about their in-ring ability than what they looked like. And again, it's just kind of like, I feel like I think people just remember those horrible storylines that they were a part of before. You know what I mean?
That's not their fault.
And that's not their fault. They hang on to that, or they're like 1 minute matches. I mean, that's how the whole Give Divas a Chance hashtag started, was, you know, the Bellas, they were in that match and it was like a 2 minute squash or 1 minute squash, you know? And I was just like, what the hell is happening?
It's crazy to think that was the nature of the women's division at that point. They were getting 2 or 3 minutes on Raw, one match.
Yes.
Right.
And that was happening simultaneously when Bailey and Sasha were doing Takeover Brooklyn and just killing it. You know what I mean? Like the women's division down there was just blowing up. And people were like, holy crap, women's wrestling is amazing, you know? And then meanwhile, you have the same company with women doing this on Raw and SmackDown, and you're just like,
and then in the UFC you have Ronda Rousey taking the world by storm. So it was
1,000%
storm. And I think people look, fans, casuals, whatever, look at Nikki and there's this stigma, but to me, you look to the people that were there and know, and I've heard on his podcast multiple times, Arn Anderson, who he's a legend. He is a ring general, and he could not put over Nikki Bella more. He always talks about her work and how she had one of the snuggest forearms in the game. Like, so I think if you really respect the business and respect the people that came before and their opinions, and you hear an Arn Anderson putting over the Bellas like that, says a lot.
I agree.
I think it also goes back to having a old, out of touch man booking the show and not seeing where the women were like doing everything great. They had to finally convince Vince, let's give them a chance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The bottom line, at the end of the day, it comes down to what Vince wants to see on his show. And like you said, UFC had it, NXT had it, and Vince wouldn't take to it right away. Somebody finally got through to him with something.
Because he let Triple H go down to Orlando and play with his toys all by himself, and Triple H pretty much forced his hand and like, this is what we're doing down here. This needs to be done on the main roster, and perfect storm.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words on this topic?
I think you guys have, I mean, any doubt I had, you've won the debate. I'll go along.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Go along.
Yeah, I agree. All right, to our final topic. AEW Revolution, success or failure?
I think it was a success. I mean, it's very controversial because of the ending. I think it's Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He's, it's how you leave them, right? It's how it ends, is what people are going to remember. And it's definitely what we remember. But that match was incredible. Everything about that match was incredible. The storytelling that we could see playing out before our eyes. I mean, granted, it didn't come to fruition and they should have had a plan B, like something should have happened, but the storytelling that they were trying to tell, like, was emotional, and I was emotionally invested in it. I was like, holy crap, this is going to shoot Eddie Kingston to the moon. It's the perfect way to get Mox out of there for a little while. So for me, I'm giving them grace because they're AEW. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. And in my mind, I'm just going to pretend that it went the way that it was supposed to. And things just like blew up and, exploded. And Eddie Kingston was a bloody mess. And that's how it all played out. But I think a lot of the matches were great. I'll let you guys kind of chime in. But I thought overall the show was good. I'm
going to say success too. And it is so controversial, like you said, because of the ending. Obviously, what we see at the end of the show is Eddie Kingston's dead because of some sparklers. I mean,
he had a fear heart attack. He's
out. Yeah. So, and that's, like you said, it's what they leave him with. But man, the rest of the matches on that, the tag team battle royal, amazing. I love that they told story during the battle royal. You had a heel turn during the
QT turns heel.
QT turns heel. I mean, as far as a success, calling it a success or a failure, absolutely a success.
Okay. I'm going to say not a success. Okay. I think all the matches were phenomenal. There wasn't one match that I was kind of like, I mean, the Sheeta match, there was no build up to it. So that was kind of like, for me, but every match entertained. I mean, the stories coming out, even with the Bucks and Jericho and MJF, and how something's going to happen tonight with this war conference thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
But here's why I say it's a failure. Every match is great. Loved the exploding barbed wire death match up until the end. All of that, everything was great. But this entire event was built off of three things: the surprise of the ladder match, the big Paul White surprise, and everyone wanting to see this ring blow up. Okay.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Those three things. Ethan Page, I'll give them Ethan Page. I'm a big fan. I thought that was a good surprise. But Christian, I think his contributions to this company, I think, will be huge, especially behind the scenes. I think his behind the scenes contributions will be bigger than his in-ring stuff, although I am excited to see the storylines he's put into. But we're talking about a build, and maybe this is the fans' fault for getting so worked up in their mind, and maybe it's Tony Khan's fault for putting the cheese out there for us to bite on.
True, yeah.
CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, people were saying Ronda Rousey, Kurt Angle, and then Christian comes out. So that was a little,
yeah.
And then the smoke bomb, puff of smoke, sparkler situation at the end of the night.
Yeah.
For me, I loved the event. I enjoyed the hell out of the event, but just from a stepping back, looking at how it ended in a public forum, absolute failure.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, Chad. I if it wasn't for all the hype, I would have said a success, but the hype just kind of, like, it was a great show, but the hype killed it. All the anticipation to seeing all this stuff. Imagine if they don't announce this surprise and Christian just shows up, how much bigger it would have seemed.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have made a huge difference on a night. Oh my God, now Christian's here. Like, what's going on? But instead, like, you're just imagining the biggest person ever. And I love Christian, but it's Christian.
I know. So, like, and the big show is putting over Christian. You know what I mean?
Right,
like, it's like, what is happening here?
It was a great show, but because of the hype that they built and the fans built, it was it a failure? Probably not. But did it feel like a failure? Yes.
How many extra, like, How many extra buys did they get because of this build up though?
Oh, they definitely got a lot of people tuning in for this surprise. But so you could say that's a success in that regard,
right?
But you got to follow up. People remember the finish. And I honestly think if that ring would have blew up like FMW in the 90s and we had fireballs, and no one would have been talking about the Christian thing as much. If it would have went off the air with this big, like, holy shit moment, that Christian thing people would have given that a lot more grace.
Oh, again,
100%.
That's the catalyst that's making us have this debate. If the ring exploded the way it should have, again, we wouldn't even be having this talk.
Well, the thing is the ring didn't even have to explode. My thing is that these are all professionals, right? Once they saw, like, holy crap, this did not happen the way that we thought it should happen. I feel like of the people that you could have had that happen to, Kenny Omega, Moxley, and freaking Eddie Kingston, they are the three best people to just go out there and like improv in the moment and make something happen. Like Kenny could have come out and been like, ha ha ha, you thought I was gonna make the ring explode? No, I want to be kicking your ass for a long time. Like, I'm not gonna kill you. You know what I mean? Like, and can 100%. And Eddie would have been amazing playing off that. And I know, but I mean, why didn't the ref just say, hey, Eddie, like, it didn't really explode. You know what I mean? Like, just say something, because I know it's not Eddie's fault, because I'm sure it sounded, I can't imagine what the explosions probably sounded like. I mean, he was huddled up, and he couldn't see what was going on.
You got to improvise in that situation.
Somebody should have said, like, Eddie, don't be so dead. It wasn't that big a deal.
Maybe Remsburg did say that, but they couldn't hear him through his hazmat suit.
The face shield.
Maybe it muffled his sound a little bit.
I do have another gripe though. I thought that the street fight was amazing. Like, the execution of it was exactly what they need to be doing with Sting, and like perfectly executed. The commentary though, can we talk about why the hell there is commentary in this street fight? It was so, like, they had the music, it was intense, and then you got Taz and JR just yammering on like, oh, he's got a baseball bat, pal, and I'm like, oh my God, shut up.
It didn't make sense because they had this very like cinematic, serious score playing, and then they're cracking jokes. I agree. I can't argue that took me out of it.
It took me completely out of the moment. I would have been so bought in, but I was so distracted by the horrible commentary. It wasn't even good commentary. It was horrible commentary. Again, going back to our first debate, I didn't hear really anybody talking about the commentary. And I'm like, can you imagine if they would have had Michael Cole over the Boneyard match at WrestleMania? Like, people would have lost their freaking minds. Like, oh my God, why did they have Michael Cole on there? But then they, I said, had Taz just like,
Right. Yeah.
The beauty of commentary, and this is one of my issues with New Japan when they have Americans come on and dub over commentary. Part of the thing that makes commentary great is you're seeing it live. You're feeling the emotion of the here and now.
Yes.
Anytime someone is commentating over something that's been pre-filmed or done before, and it loses that in the moment live feeling. And I could feel that. And it made the commentary seem bad to me.
You're definitely not getting that spontaneity whenever you, like you said, you're watching a pre-tape or a pre-roll, something that's already been there. Yeah.
Just to take a step back, you talked about how many extra buys did all the hype get them with this pay-per-view. How many does it hurt them in the future when they promise something and people are thinking about ordering it and they're like, oh, last time.
Yeah, that's true too.
You think about long-term booking, like you got to consider all of that. Like, is this promise really going to give everybody what it wants?
Yeah, and I was listening to Busted Open Radio this week, and they had callers calling in who were there at the show, and they were saying when fans were leaving that night, there were like negative chants of AEW, and these were AEW hardcores.
Yeah.
So it's almost like
they were booing. They were booing, and when the ring didn't blow up, the fans were booing, and I was like,
right. This is the first time in AEW's history, in my opinion, we've seen just a little bit of cracks in the wall in the fan base.
That's how you learn. That's how you make it get better. Tony Khan's not a dumb man, like we said. He listens, and he's gonna all right, now I gotta go out there and I gotta win them back, and I gotta make.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, he will. Like I said, they're already spinning it. They're already like using their creative and their writers. Like, we have to make this make sense, like in some way or another. I'm excited to see what they talk about on Dynamite, you know, how they make it make sense, or what angle, or which way they're going to go with it. You know,
well, when Kurt Angle shows up tonight on there, it's really going to drive it home.
Can you imagine they like, you know, debut Christian on the pay-per-view and then bring Kurt Angle out on just like a standard episode of Dynamite? That's pretty par for the course for them though. Like, they don't hold much back on their weekly
that's
shows.
a total
you know?
WWE Raw after Mania move.
That's true.
Have that big,
that is true.
That big surprise. And Tony Khan in interviews over the last month has said there's going to be a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces over the coming months. Not just so there's more stuff to come.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up.
Yeah. Failure.
The
failure.
In your opinion.
It was a successful failure. Okay.
There you go.
Like I said, it may have felt like a failure, but it really wasn't a failure when you look at the whole card and you watch the show.
Well, I think the biggest success out of all of this is that Tom and Chad have actually agreed on something.
Yeah.
Yes.
First time for everything.
I think that's where the real success is out of this whole thing. So, all right. So that's going to wrap us up for this week. Make sure you guys are following Pod Foundation, where you can find us, Chick Foley Show, Pyramid Wrestling, and the Extra Cooler Show. Tom, go ahead and get your plug in.
The Wrestlin' Fig Fed on Twitter and Instagram, and where all your favorite podcasts are found.
Right. Well,
thank you so much, Sheena, for being a part of the show this week.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys for having me. I had a blast.
It was so much fun, Sheena.
Thank you.
Come back.
I will. I'll be back. You let me know when.